I'm back. I'm fired up and ready to go. Time to see what's going to happen on the carousel.
Welcome, one and all, to Teamfight Tactics at the Esports World Cup, where the grandest tournament meets the greatest strategy game in the world. My name is Sia Lee, and I am so excited to be your host here on the B stream for TFT, joined by my friends Barry and Tamura. Guys, how are you enjoying the new set?
I'm enjoying it a lot so far. I think right at the beginning we had a little bit more flexibility was what was viable, but since then, as we'll see as this tournament goes on, maybe not being as flexible, but I'm still really enjoying the new mechanics, these new power-ups. It's so exciting.
Yeah, the new mechanics, the new power-ups, the changes to the item system, and also the roles of some of the new champions and units. It's been really interesting to see how players are adapting to that as we're trying to make changes to the whole system, which is improving the longevity of TFT, I would say.
Yeah, and this new set is quite exciting, and there's going to be so much time to dive into all of those details. But first, let's look at EWC and what this is all about, and look a little bit more at the format explainer for the entire tournament.
This is the Esports World Cup Club Championship, the ultimate cross-game competition that will crown the best esports club in the world. Let's break down how it works. Clubs will be able to compete at the Esports World Cup and as many titles as they can qualify for. The clubs will then earn points based on their placement in each title. To qualify for the club championship, a club will need a top 8 placement in at least 2 competitions. But to win the championship, a club must place first in at least 1 competition. At the end of the Esports World Cup, the 24 clubs with the highest number of points will earn a share of the 27 million, with the winner taking home a staggering $7 million. And of course, the title of the best esports club in the world. Who will rise above and write their place in history? Watch it all here at the Esports World Cup.
Week 6 of the Esports World Cup here in TFT is on the stage, but currently we see the update presented by STC for the club championship. And as of yesterday, we have a new leader.
Yeah, TL just jumping into the lead. So Falcons had that spot locked down, and now in the business end, we're into that 6th week, and TL is now taking the lead. And when we're coming into TFT, you look at those top 3 placements especially, these are 3 teams to mirror that we expect to have strong showings, and that'll really play an impact on the club championship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really exciting that we can see TFT as being a small cog in a larger system. You know, they're playing for their clubs now. They're playing for more than just themselves, playing in that team environment, and it's really good to see.
And one of the things to note as well is you need to have a win in a game in order to win the club championship. We did have Twisted Minds add that win with Warzone, but Vitus Pro, who is sitting there in 4th place, still needs a win, and so maybe TFT will be that game.
It could possibly be, and we'll be seeing them today on the B stream as well, so hopefully for them it'll be a good start. But like you said, any team that now needs a win is thinking, okay, TFT, last year we maybe didn't have the best showing. Some of these sides in TFT, they didn't have necessarily the 4v4 experience, but now the club championship's on the line. The likes of Virtus Pro, everything to play for.
I love that you bring up the lack of previous experience, because it did feel a little bit rushed last year. You know, clubs trying to get their TFT teams signed, all of that organized. However, now they've had so much more time, so much more preparation, that teams were signed well before the clubs, and they've been able to boot camp and have a lot more preparation this time.
And they're all competing for more than just a TFT pride and winning a tournament, but they're also competing for probably the sickest trophy in all of esports. Let's check out what this looks like.
No competition is as ruthless as the Esports World Cup. Its trophy system is no exception. The Club Championship Trophy, awarded to the one club that rose above the rest and reigned supreme across all EWC games. The Game Trophy, when a competitor closes their eyes, it's all they see, and it's not complete until it's sealed with a champion's key. Every participant earns a key engraved with their name. That's their right to compete. This year, returning champions hold a key unlike any other. Only one can place their key into the game trophy and become an EWC champion. The frame of the champion's key is embedded into the totem, a stone marker of legacy displaying every champion of the year. The keys of the eliminated will be crushed. The champions select 3 broken keys as a personal token, a reminder of who they have humbled. Beneath the totem, a resin block holds the remaining keys, a graveyard of fallen contenders. Will your dreams be broken or your name carved in gold and stone? At EWC, nothing is granted, everything is earned.
What an amazing demonstration of what it means to be a victor here at EWC, but not just fighting for these trophies, but also for a pretty large prize pool.
It certainly is a big prize pool for these players coming in here. This team format, 150k for the winners. I mean, not just the pride of participating potentially in helping your club get to that championship, there's also this tournament prize pool, and the players have a keen eye on that.
Yeah, and they've been working so hard and long for it for a long time. There's a lot of money on the line, but it's not one of those tournaments that you auto qualify for and then, oh, now I can win a lot of money. They've been thinking about this for a long time. They've been working hard in a team environment, and we've seen a lot more support staff as well going into that as well. So it really is big picture TFT here.
Yeah, and one of the unique things about this tournament is that we are on land, right? The players are right behind us. Not only that, but the trophies are right behind us. The hearts of their keys and all of these things are on display. We'll be able to see the keys crushed when people drop out of the tournament too. It's going to be awesome. But this tournament runs pretty uniquely to any other TFT tournament because of the 4v4 format. And we have some graphics here to help us explain. It will be a 5-day tournament starting off with 16 teams.
Yeah, so coming into this day one, every team will be playing each other once in this group stage. So we're coming in here, and there's not do or die for any of these teams. If the first win is going to be so important, 2 are progressing from each group, but then we will be getting to that elimination stage tomorrow. So for Tamura, coming into day one, it's not do or die for these teams.
Yeah, they can take a breather. If they do have a bad first showing, it's okay. They can bounce back. And it's really going to show the teams which ones have been prepping well together, because they've been taking a lot of bot 4s, 8s and losing in scrims, I'm sure of it. However, how can they bounce back in a team environment and boost each other up?
Yeah, and they've been obviously practicing for a long time, but they get one game today, right?
Yeah.
One 4v4 game, best of 3, and we're going to move through the groups throughout the day. So we're starting with Group A, then Group B, Group C, Group D, and that's how we'll finish up today with each of those best of 3s. And best of 3s will continue until the very final day, where that grand final will be an epic game of 5. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, and with best of 3s especially, as I said, today isn't do or die for these teams, but it's the same for the first game of each series as well. So there's a lot of time for these players to recover if they don't have the best start to the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see some of our teams here on screen now. Starting with Group A, this will be the first matchups on both of our teams. But first, look at the attending teams. All 16 teams on our graphic. Which ones are you guys most excited to see?
I think Team Falcons coming into this have to be one of the favorites. They have 2 of the winners coming from last year that were on that Wolves roster. They've now moved over to Falcons. Falcons have assembled this CN super team almost, and we really expect them to have a strong showing.
Yeah, I'd love to look at T1, and that's going to be one of our first matchups. So really exciting to see their storyline progress from a strong showing last year. And they've picked up a new teammate, but they've kept a lot of the same roster.
Yeah, we see our Group A here. T1 versus Weibo will be our first matchup on stream, but also Team Vitality and Alcadcia on the other side. Team Vitality is also a team of favorites. All 4 of the roster from last year were they able to make it to a top 3 will be on there. But Group B we see here on screen, which will be the second matchup of the day.
Yeah, Group B, coming in there, we have the All-EMEA first match between Aegis and Maus, so that's a French-German rivalry, which in TFT was already a big rivalry. And then we have the VN representatives with Virtus Pro against, as I mentioned before, those potential tournament favorites.
Yeah, so they're going to be, VP looking to be a bit more of the underdogs going up against the giants of TFT. There's big eyes on them as they have, big shoes to fill. Yeah,
and that matchup specifically is a great one, because those 2 teams are both at the top 5 of our club championship standings. And so that first win will be huge for their chances in this tournament. Group C on the screen now. This will be their third matchup of the day. Flash Wolves and Twisted Minds up at the top. One that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, especially I think this Flash Wolves roster coming in, maybe a bit of an underdog in some people's minds, but a lot of these teams coming out of CN and APAC had that ACL practice before, so a lot of 4v4 experience. And then Citadel Fnatic, Tamura coming in, NA versus EU, another big matchup.
Yeah, really exciting to see Fnatic with the switch up of the roster if they're able to, kind of live up to the expectations that they might have had last year.
and Wolves Esports, the returning champions, back at the top of Group D versus Rock Esports, and then EVOS versus Team Liquid. Team Liquid currently in first place in their club standings and have a very good chance of making another run here in TFT.
Yeah, I think they certainly do. I think TL in this group may be one of the favorites along with Rock.
And as we move along into today's schedule, we'll see that displayed here. This is our schedule here for B-Stream. Weibo Gaming versus T1, and we see getting loaded up onto the stage behind us. Very excited for them. But there's also 4 matchups today.
Yeah, some really big hitters. We talked about some of the potential favorites here. Falcons is on the B-Stream, TL on the B-Stream as well. Not just in TFT favorites, club championship contenders as well. So we have some great matchups, but that first one, very tasty.
We're so excited to move through the entire day, but guys, it's going to be an electric week of TFT, 5 days of competition, and it's going to be so exciting to watch it all because 4v4 specifically is very unique when it comes to TFT. Usually it's a solo played game, but now you take half the lobby and half the lobbies in your team fighting against the other half. How is that going to change the way people play?
I think we do see a lot lower caps sometimes in 4v4. Players are holding to deny a full team. So some of these compositions, we're not going to see them max out to the extent that they have done in the past. But I mean, last year we saw with the 4v4, a lot of players hadn't really had too much experience with it. This time, as we've already mentioned, they've been boot camping for like 6 weeks, some of these rosters, so I expect to see a much higher level this time around.
There's a lot to expect and a lot that we are going to be thinking about coming into it. However, I also want to point out that so many of these teams have been boot camping completely hidden. They've been keeping their cards behind their pocket. We don't know what they're going to be bringing to the stage because we've seen a lot of it on solo queue, but I'm sure that what they're showing to the public face is not the whole picture, and that's what I'm excited to see today.
And it's very interesting because last year at EWC, a lot of the teams we were like, oh, these are our favorites. We think these guys are going to win. Didn't have the best showing. But don't worry, we're back with more predictions. We think we know who's best. So we have a bit of power rankings presented by Aramco on our screen. And let's talk about some of these favorites real quick at the top.
Yeah, so this is a collaborative effort by all of us across A and B stream here. So Vitality coming in. This is the roster they actually wanted originally last year. So Prestevant has joined this team. Already last year had a strong show and get to that semi-final stage, and we expect them to do even better this time around.
Yeah, and also shout out to T1 up next. So they've brought in a lot of their strong players from before. Bintium, special shout out as he's been to Worlds 5 times. He's going to be really leading the crew. They've brought in a new signing as well. And then next up we also have Falcons as well. So obviously a very, very powerful side as well. Big money going into them as they are, crowned as favorites by many in the public eye.
And our last favorite, Twisted Minds, having the only player here with a Tactician's Crown, which is one of these set championships. And so with Shunga on that roster, they absolutely have some high standards. Moving quickly through the rest of these, the contenders tier, what do you guys expect from them? Is this just like, I think they're going to make it out of groups, or they might even win the whole thing?
I think these are teams that initially people thought, okay, maybe these are going to be really strong rosters, and then didn't have the best qualifiers, best ACL showings. I think Mauers in particular, you look at this and you're like, if I could build a German super team, it's that side. But in the EMEA quals, they weren't the strongest. Everyone thought they'd kind of run away with things. But since then, we've heard really good things about scrims. People are scared of this roster, so they potentially have got it pulled together.
I want to give a mention to Liquid up next. They've got the Brazilian signing and also the fact that they're at the top of the club championship. So I don't know if that's going to change the team dynamic. They might have some of the managers kind of breathing down their throat. Come on, guys, we really, really need this. So that'll be interesting to see if they can bring it home.
Yeah, and now we have that whole underdogs level that we're not really saying like we don't think they're going to do, but these are teams where like, hey, you guys are sleeping on them a little bit. They very much have an opportunity to upset some of these contenders and make a run for themselves.
Yeah, I think every team that we've mentioned there, ultimately they've went through the qualifiers, they've had things like ACL already. A lot of them are the same rosters from last year or partly. So I think a lot of teams here can cause upsets, even though you might look at the roster and think, it's not the most star names. 4v4, it's ultimately a team game.
Well, it's also interesting that this year we've had a lot of people come in through the qualifiers where they didn't need that world experience. So this year, pretty much to get into the tournament itself, you had to have a very stacked resume. You needed to have a team that was built off the foundations of some world's players. But we've seen these teams actually form very coherent teams with the same nationality, speaking the same language, and they've potentially played together in the same study groups, and they're showing that in a team environment they can compete.
Absolutely, and we'll see that demonstrated in our first matchup of the day with this head-to-head we see on screen presented by SNB. Weibo Gaming versus T1. This is a very, very hype matchup just to start off our tournament.
Yeah, and it just shows the quality of the teams across the tournament. Coming in with Weibo here, I think Saupimi has to be one of the potential star names on this roster. They all went to Worlds, but he's at this 2 times World appearance, 5th place highest finish. Really, really impressive. And I think you look at some of the other names through this, LPTZ, Guan, Tianlong, a very, very stacked roster, but Xiaopimi coming in as the 2nd seed from China, Weibo should be a force to reckon with.
Yep, and then we can see also T1, I've already mentioned previously, Bintim, 5 times world representative, is going to be leading the team. We also have SCSC, who's been to Worlds multiple times as well, and they're bringing in Duni Zuni as well, and they've finally swapped over to Crazy Moving. So only one, small roster change, but the fact that they've been able to prep together for so long means that this is going to be a team that's coming into the EWC with over a year's worth of experience.
And Weibo Gaming is one of these teams from the CN region that we look at with very, very high caps, right? CN was regarded as the best region in TFT for a long time, and they have some of these superstars on this team.
Yeah, it feels like CN early on was the power region, and then since then we've seen a shift where a lot of the regions have contenders. Every world championship, every crown, there's contenders coming in. But yeah, like you said, the likes of Tianlong's been around a long, long time. Touchdown before Xiaopimi, a player with so much experience that, yeah, CN had this reputation early on as the super region, and these players have just continued to be at the top.
Yeah, I wanted to mention also that in the early days of TFT, CN so dominant as well, and then we've started to see some of the other regions do well. Interesting to note that over the last couple of years, they've actually started to form more study groups. I was told online by Tanner actually that it's common in other regions that everyone's in study groups, they're in Discord calls all night. A lot of the CN players, they were actually just playing solo, so they were dominating the top of the scene, playing solo. Now we're in a 4v4 environment. It's going to be interesting to see the shake-up.
Absolutely, and their opponents are T1, which is somebody we look at as these guys really are sitting at the top. These is a high pedigree organization, especially within the League of Legends and now TFT World, headed by Bintum, who we just saw on screen.
Yeah, Bintum 5 times crown appearances. This is a player with so much history. A player I do want to touch on, Tamura, you talked about him a little bit. Crazy Moving has a lot of pressure coming in because this team came 2nd last year, and they decided that, okay, we're going to take Bobe out of this, who had a good showing at EWC previously, and they've went in this direction. So that puts a lot of pressure on the newcomer.
Yeah, especially that he doesn't have the same accolades as some of the top players. So it makes me think that he must have really gelled well with the team. He must be a really good fit, and they must see something in him that makes the 4v4 a really complete team as a whole.
And 4v4 is all about that teamwork, right? Taking an individual game and now making it into a 4v4 team mode. And I'm so excited to get this started. But before we do, guys, let's look a little bit more about what this looks like. It's going to be the 4v4 dynamic is super interesting, especially as they look across the stage from each other, because your goal is not always to go first.
No, it's certainly not. Essentially, 18 points is that cutoff point. If you get to 18 and you have a first, your team will win. So we're looking for teams to get to that 19-point threshold. Those 8th places you really want to avoid in 4v4. It makes it incredibly difficult. You suddenly need to you said you don't need a first. When you have an 8th place on the team, suddenly you're like, oh my god, we need somebody to be able to turn this around and put together a winning composition.
Yeah, now you need, the first place if you've got 8. But interestingly enough, we've actually seen previous winners, Wolves taking a lot of 8s. The statistics show that they had so many 8th place, but it doesn't matter because if the team is being lifted up. So that's an interesting dynamic. I wonder if they're going to have players who are going to sandbag and really try and, take out the other players, even if it means they're going 8.
Well, let's hear from one of our teams. We have an interview with T1 featuring Bintum and Crazy Moving. Let's hear from them.
Takes out the last hope for T1. Big Bad Wolves have won the EWC.
저희가 지난 EWC에서 울브스한테 결승전에서 아쉽게 패했었는데 사실 그 당시에 준비가 잘 돼 있던 상태라고 생각을 했고 울브스가 그 당시에 정보가 많이 없던 팀이긴 해서 복병 예상 외에 이제 복병으로 치고 올라와서 당한 느낌이 있었지만 이번에는 이제 더 파악이 된 만큼 우승까지 해보도록 하겠습니다. 지난 크레이지 무빙 선수를 영입하게 된 크레이지 무빙 선수가 워낙 TFT에 대한 경험이 많은 선수고 EWC도 경험을 했던 선수라서 대회장에 갔을 때 저희 팀을 리드해 줄 수 있는 역할.
사실 제가 프로게이머 생활을 한 15년 정도 해왔는데 처음 시작할 때부터 꿈의 팀이 T1이었는데 들어오게 돼서 너무 좋고 그리고 우승을 노릴 수 있는 팀이라서 더 좋은 것 같습니다. 사실 이번 EWC TFT 대회가 팀전으로 열리는데 제가 그 전에 팀 게임을 좀 많이 경험했다 보니까 뭐 콜적이나 아니면 브리핑 같은 부분에서 도움이 좀 많이 되고 있는 것 같습니다.
이번 연도에 저희가 바라는 거는 당연히 우승이고 이번에는 작년보다 준비가 더 잘 돼 있다고 생각하기 때문에 좋은 결과로 증명하겠습니다.
사실 개인적으로는 제가 커리어 하이가 세계대회 준우승이에요. 그래가지고 이번 대회를 통해서 멤버도 좋은 만큼 커리어 하이를 좀 이루고 싶습니다. 우승으로. 다 보시고 오겠습니다.
I don't know about you guys, but that got me all kinds of fired up. T1's winning the whole thing, I'm pretty sure. If they're better than they were last year, better prepared, now with Crazy Moving, I mean, I don't know.
You can see how confident they feel. There's no doubt in their minds they're bringing this home. So they have to start strong if they put this out there. They've kind of came in swinging, expecting this big result, so they need to start day one to show what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's great to get a little bit of insight into the player dynamics, the fact that they've signed up Crazy Moving and they reckon that he's actually more of a leader. You know, he's taking that role, and despite the fact that he's the new guy on the block, it's great to see that, you know, you can have someone that can stand up, be a little bit louder in the voice comms, because it's a 4v4, you know, it's an environment where you really do need someone to take charge sometimes.
15 years as a professional gamer, that's a lot of experience that will definitely be helpful here on the EWC stage. T1 looking to run it back and not be runner-up this time, facing off against a very formidable opponent in Weibo Gaming. This is going to be a best of three, gentlemen, and it's going to be a good one. Do you guys think this will go 3 games?
I think this one will. I looked through the day and I saw potentially somewhere you can see a heavy favourite this time round. We have 2 other sides that we expect to do really well. I think we're in for 3 games.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if T1 does drop the first one. I feel like they're a team that, you know, you can't count out, and I think that their camaraderie and their ability to play as a unit will be really, really good, and I think they can bounce back in a 3 series.
And here we go, launching into game number 1 of the Esports World Cup in our first matchup between T1 and Weibo Gaming.
And as we do get into this first game here with myself, Barry Baden, and Tamura, we're looking at the meta. We didn't touch on it in the pre-show, but we can do it now as we've got into this first game. What are we expecting to see? Because there's one particular comp, Tamura, that's going to shine ahead of the rest.
Yes, and that one particular comp is going to be playing around the gangplank. So we know that this is a very, very dominant 2-cost. We're going to be looking for that stretchy arm so that we can get a ranged GP. And you don't even need to have artifacts in order to enable that. It's going to be very dominant, even as a 2-star.
Yeah, the artifacts just elevate it to the extent where you're looking at a potential lobby winner. I do think in this particular meta, we're going to see the GP2 used to tempo on, and then it's going to be pushed towards those level 8s, level 9s. It's going to be very rare we see GP3, but like you said, if one of those artifacts comes along, that's when the lobby winner is almost determined.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, how much they're willing to push levels, because we've seen, you know, they can roll down a little bit on 6, but they do want to get to level 7. It's very, very important they do pick up that rise and get the 4 mentor online, because this is what really just enables the team comp. It's not just Gangplank, like the other mentors are really strong as well. We've seen a lot of dominance from Kobuko, as we do see Crazy Moving picking up a Katarina. Another 2-cost reroll comp that I think we can see a bit of. It's just a little bit hard because players will be denying the Katarinas.
Yeah, it certainly will be. It does, with so many people potentially playing GP, it does mean you can potentially get that Katarina 2 really early. We saw it picked up there with the Midas instantly as that power-up, so leaving the potential if the items do come through, maybe you can temp off the back of it and pick up a bit extra gold. But we're going to see so much gold in these particular lobbies. These power-ups, for anybody new and hasn't played this set particularly, these power-ups can just accelerate your econ to an incredible extent.
Yeah, and they're going to be using that as tempos. It's very easy to just play around units and then remove them. We are, you know, taking a while to choose our augments, which makes sense in a 4v4 environment. You can't be hasty about this. You can't just lock something in because it might ruin your teammates' abilities to shine. So I don't see Executioner Crown getting picked up, but we do get rid of a little bit of a randomness there. We don't want to be playing around the Wandering Trainer if we think that someone on our other team needs to be playing a specific line, as this could really ruin 2 players' games in one bad decision.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you end up contesting your own teammate, and we've seen this before in 4v4. It can cause a real big problem. Crazy Moving here, picked up that early Katarina with that Midas touch, clearly talking to the team there and decided, Executioners, this is my line. The rest of the game, we know what everyone else will be going towards, but I have my direction.
Yeah, that is actually quite interesting. I'm eating my own words there. It's not a standard line that I've seen too frequently, but maybe they've had some success with it. Maybe they just want something to lock themselves in, because we know that a lot of these other players are going to be contesting similar lines. And honestly, I thought that Katarina was just going to be used as tempo to farm a little bit of gold. But maybe we're going to be playing a standard line there, as we do see a Jinx picked up here from what I do believe is the unexpected expectedness. So maybe they want to pick that up early and then see what they get from it, then the other players can decide. That's one of those augments that might have been selected a little bit earlier than the other decisions.
Yeah, you talked about the randomness aspect potentially not being as favored, but if you do have the one person on your team go first, and then they potentially take something like that, and then they have the Jinx come through, you have Star Guardian as an option, you can also potentially lean into the Snipers line with Juggernaut's front line, which has been very successful. So a few ways you could take this.
And SCSC, we can just see on the other side, has managed to pick up the Flicker Blades there. So the Living Forge picked up means that we are going to be seeing multiple artifacts on that end, but that's just such a dominant artifact. We've seen it on the GP, especially if you can get onto the stretchy arms, the range. We've seen it on backline. If you can manage to get into Crystal Gambit, then the Ashe dominates with that item especially, but a great pickup, and if we're winning rounds early, then that's just going to scale out of control.
Yeah, Flicker Blade's incredible on GP, the likes of RFC as well, Sniper's Focus, any of these things just accelerate the comp so much. Flicker Blades is, I suppose, a little bit more flexible in that we know how strong GP is, but the likes of TF, incredible on it as well, so potentially even in the late game, it could use that on another carry if additional artifacts do come through.
Yep. And we can see Blue Buff being slammed over there by Salpimi. He's got the Buried Treasures, which is a very, very good 2-1 augment pickup. It allows you to be strong in the early game and just start slamming items because you know you're going to have an abundance of them. With previous changes to items, and I do believe it was the last set, we saw players favoring some of these item augments earlier just because you're not guaranteed to be able to get 3 items for your carry, 3 items for your tank, and then having utility on top of that.
Yeah, and I think in 4v4 especially, when you know your matchups coming through, if you have one of your teammates, Shimmer Scale Essence, you can have a long fight. You can go, okay, let's remove our damage from this fight. I want to stack this Moguls and get 2, 3, 4 gold potentially. So it does mean you can really tailor that and get extra econ coming through.
Yeah, and the econ is especially important as players are going to want to leverage that, especially in the mid game. Early game, you know, they can hold on to it for a little bit, but because we're going to be playing a denying game in the late game, sometimes these players aren't even going to make it that fast. Though, want to make sure, and I just want to hold that thought for a second because we do have a Sterix slam there with the Flicker Blades, which is a little bit unconventional there with the Ezreal, but I mean, it's an item, it's a slam, it will make more sense as we get further late into the game.
Yeah, it certainly will. I think in general in 4v4 as well, you look, okay, which is our win streak player, which is our potential 5-loss player, and if you looked at these slams and thought that could potentially get me there, then it's always worth trying to have this. We do see on the other side, we're going to have the Zac Hero augment coming through, so we actually touched on this a little bit backstage. We were talking about how viable this will be. Obviously, coming in here, you're going to hit it for free, and you can temp off the back of it. And I think Zac can certainly cause quite a lot of problems, especially in this GP matchup. This Mentor line has so much CC. Zac doesn't care about that at all.
Yeah, and I think that Protagonist, you know, it's something that's just picked up by a lot of players in solo queue because they feel that, you know, if I can guarantee my carry, you know, I get the right items, then I'm going to be put into a really, really comfortable spot to play for a high placement. And, you know, in a 4v4 environment, that kind of allows them to be the player to start denying units earlier. You know, they don't have to worry too much about holding onto a lot of gold to hit their units because they're guaranteed it anyway.
Yeah, certainly the case. Just as a quick overview here, we can see exactly what everybody does have coming through. As you mentioned, that Buried Treasures for Salpimi. There's so many of these compositions. I think if he's leaning towards potentially something like the Yuumi line, you can even, if you get those extra AD items, compare it with Caitlyn. So we do see that particular composition really liking extra items.
Yep. And we see some of the other options. We do see a lot of favor towards the Shimmer Scale. We've got multiple players who've picked that up, seeming to favor the Econ. I wonder, you know, are they able to stall out some of their fights if they have matchups against their own teammates? Can we try and stall the fight? Can we get it going longer and farm even more gold? The only downside that I would say towards that style of playing is if you have something like a Gargoyles, the Moguls on the front line, is if they can't kill that unit, they're going to be doing devastating losses to their opponents.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a position where your teammates made themselves weaker so that you can scale that Moguls and get as much econ as possible, and then you're just getting 4 or 5 board. So that would be a bit of a devastating result from it. So I do think some of these, we've already seen players here shifting, selling some of their carries, keeping items on the bench. They're already thinking of potential matchups. They don't want to be doing massive damage to their own teams.
Yeah, and on top of that, talking about sacking boards to try and make their board weaker against some of their teammates. Be interesting to see, you know, how flexible these players are playing around their fruits, because when you do pick up a fruit that matches your carry or your front line really well, you want to hold on to it so you can be stronger for the entirety of the game. But sometimes you might want to actually just remove that so that you're not dealing out horrible losses, especially in the early game.
Yeah, I do think coming in as well, in the past, magnetic removers were always really powerful in 4v4. You can make yourself weaker, you can give that round to your teammate. Now with the power-ups coming through, it does even give the potential, another way to make yourself weaker, as you've said. So I don't think we'll be getting to the point in stage 5 where people have 4 or 5 power-ups remaining. I think they're going to be more frequently popped on, popped back off.
Yeah, and I'd say that we have quite a lot of standard augment selections. Nothing's kind of jumping out to me too crazy. A little bit more variance when it comes to certain players maybe having one player taking something like the Wandering Trainer and then the others deciding. But it honestly seems like for the first game, maybe they're just playing a little bit more comfort-based. They don't want to be throwing too many things out there and then just sticking to what they know for now.
Yeah, and like we said, it's the first game of the first series, so there's a lot of time to experiment and show extra things as the days goes on. Don't want to be in a position where you've played your hand and you've revealed something that you've been keeping close to your chest in scrims and you don't want to come out swinging with it straight away. I do reckon we'll see something come out at some point from one of these teams that basically none of us expected.
And we actually just saw a pre-level there from Dunizuni, maybe trying to look to find some higher cost units. A lot of the times when you're playing around Zac as your frontline, they're duo carrying the Kale, of course. However, with the protagonist hero augment, we don't need to stay on level 4, we don't need to roll lots. We're going to be collecting a lot of copies of the Zac anyway. But speaking of rolling, we do have a crew game lined up here for LBTZ. Looks like they're going to be popping a few rolls here and just trying to get the most of it. Really, really good setup here. I like the fact that they've got the Moguls there onto the Malphite. It's usually a solo frontline unit in this comp, so it's good to see.
Yeah, this comp, Shimmer Scale Essence coming in for crew is really, really good. When you get that Gamblers, Ziggs loves this item. So early game, you can run it on top of Sivir potentially. We already see a Ziggs pair coming through. We kind of thought that there'd be a crew game potentially every lobby because it's just reliable. It's something that can get you into that top 4, potentially even a 5th place, which in 4v4 solid enough.
And it's really hard to deny. When you're talking about 2-cost rerolls, such as the GP, and trying to go for it, a lot of the players, even if they're pushing to level 8, they are going to be holding on to the copies of the 2-cost. 3-cost especially as well. However, when you're talking about a comp which relies on hitting your 1-cost early, it's really, really hard to deny it because you're not going to have the ability to hold on to that much econ. You're going to be really griefing your own game if you're holding on to lots of Sivers or Malphites. And especially with the extra econ from the Moguls, they're going to be doing so much of their rolling on 3-1 that they should be getting close to their 3 stars by the second carousel.
We do, do actually see here just there's potentially one on each team. So looking on the other side there, LBTC and Bintium both look like our crew players. So both still pretty likely to hit. It is a composition that can support 2 players, but potentially one of them is going to be a little bit lower cap. So whoever does get this crew rolling early, gets at least 2 of them 3-starred, will be in a much stronger position. And
it's interesting that they have the exact same augment selection there with the Shim Scale, so they're going to be playing a very similar game. I wonder if it's kind of like a defense thing. If someone has that options to the Shimmer Scale in a 4v4 setting, and then they scout and they see that someone else has taken it, and they're going to play the crew, they go, okay, well, you're on defense. You have to play against that, because if we just give it to them for free, then they're going to get a free crew game.
Yeah, and if you determine that someone else on your team has a really, really good spot, you could be like, okay, I can deny someone on their side that has a really good opener. We can hold hands and go potentially 5th, 6th together. The other 3 players on my team have a better spot than their 3, so it could have been a factor for you.
Yeah. And yeah, you do have to at least have some copies of it, otherwise you're going to be falling way too far behind and then you're just going to be throwing your own game. So you do see Dunizuni in a very, very powerful position here. It does manage to pick up extra Ionic Spark there as well. So it's going to be very, very powerful with this Zac here, as we've seen, a lot of HP preservation here. 93 HP, not on a massive win streak, but definitely saving a lot of HP, and it's going to be putting himself in a very good team spot as he can now start to look to deny as much as possible.
Yeah, and you touched on it before about how off the back of this protagonist, you're just going to guarantee that 3-star, you keep pushing levels. With Zac especially, you can potentially have the second Zac 3-star as a tank, which sometimes the comp is missing. We know how good Kale alone, once you get to 9, even at 2-star can be. So this is a really, really good one for just allowing you to tempo. It provides a tank while you're waiting for that 4-star. It allows you to just go 9 with Kale. Should be in a really, really good spot.
We did see Dunizuni holding on to the Spark just to make sure in case he versus one of his teammates. However, he does have access to 2 removers, so maybe he's been bullying his team a little bit in the early game, or maybe the losses weren't too devastating, as we do get a look around the rest of the boards. We did predict this earlier when seeing the Flicker Blaze there was going to be playing on towards the GP. So slamming the Sterix there didn't make a whole lot of sense towards the Ezreal, but save a little bit of HP. And now this is a very fine item because it's decent on GP. And then if we do get access to something like an Edge of Night, or we want to go for something else like an IE to get a little bit more damage, Sterix is a great sign because it can go on Kobuko, it can go on Yasuo if we get to Yasuo 3. There's so many other options.
Yeah, really good tank item. Just looking, already has a Rise to mirror. So econ-wise, isn't looking too good. Has so many pairs that I assume SCSC decided, okay, I must hit one of these, and looks to have dug pretty deep, and that hasn't been the case. Does have a pair of pretty much, well, even Rise at level 6. Holding that Rise is going to be really, really important. It's going to be such a contested unit. As long as he can get 1 or 2 of these upgrades coming through in the next few rounds, he should be fine. If not, his econ is looking a little bit suspect.
Yeah, the good thing about GP is at least he can farm some of that econ back, but he really needs to be getting this 2-star online because that's when you're going to start to farm and have a lot of money income throughout all of Stage 3. It looks like he's rolled down very, very deep. Not sure if he was willing to sell the Rise pair to maybe bring up his econ a little bit more. It's not a unit that's, traditionally itemized too much in that line. It can do well if you get towards the late game and you have items in your Kobuko, your GP, and then finally you can start to get some for your Rise. But even Yasuo is often favored as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he can hit that and then still tempo because his items are really good. It's just the rolls he's not hitting.
Yeah, we talked about Rise being a potential hold in pretty much every game. But like you said, when his econ's in such a rough spot, that maybe isn't going to be the case.
See Bintim there picking up a belt on the Leona. As we see a few other things going past, but I don't think we've seen too many players in a position to be playing around that line. It's like relatively standard, but a lot of the times when the Sorks are heavily contested, players do like to default towards the Yuumi and the Leona. It's very, very good synergy, and it's nice way to build a board. And there we do see finally the GP2. Now this board is looking very strong, and we only have 10 gold to work with, but I think we can start to build up our econ again.
Yeah, it's such a cheap board to be able to stabilize. We know how good it can be. GP can just start farming you so much gold, should be really strong. We do check in here with one of our crew players who is rolling really, really deep here, is trying to get ahead on this line, ahead of the opposition. Is in an okay spot, but has rolled pretty deep and has yet to hit that Sivert. You just need to get to that two crew 3-star point, and then you can really scale off the back of it.
That's absolutely brutal, especially when you have to play up against someone who's doing exactly what you are, and they're going to be taking all of the same units. And we can build up a little bit more money with this Gambler's Blade. The Moguls is going to be proccing for quite some time, but unfortunately we do get sniped out by an Akali. Having our carry in the corner means that it's very easy for Salpimini to position that Akali, and Akali, a very strong unit, especially picked up with anti-heal and a Rabadon's, is able to snipe backline.
Yeah, and in these particular compositions where you have that solo frontliner that is just massive, Akali absolutely eats these up. The backline is just a free hit. Even if you position around it a little bit, you're still going to be, eventually she will find her way on top of your carry. And in this particular comp, we touched on it's very solo frontline heavy. We do see is closing in on potentially some of those 3-stars, but as you've said, not in the strongest position.
And Salpimi showing off his skill, showing off why he's one of the best players in the world. He's got the buried treasures as well as Savage. Like he can do anything from here, anything that he sets his mind to. A very interesting board kind of set up here. We've got double Sterix slammed as well, and very unconventional line, I would say, but it seems to be working, as picking up a couple of wins. Go back to the exact polar opposite with Dunizuni, who's got a very standard game, hasn't had to cook that much here. I'd say this is a very standard way to play Zac.
Yeah, 2 completely different spots. Someone that's left themselves very flexible, which we didn't think would really be happening too much in this particular meta. So Salpimi doesn't have a lot of HP to work with, so I'm a little concerned of if they're able to stabilize off the back of that. But as you've said, a player here that is in a perfectly good spot has that Zac. Unfortunately, we'll be losing this round to the Katarina player, but Katarina, we know how strong they are in Stage 3.
And managed to pick up the Healing Orbs as well for Katarina. Very, very powerful. Healing Orbs as an augment is very strong when you have a super tank, and then all of your carries are killing things like Leona, and then Leona just keeps picking up the Healing Orbs. Or you do the alternative route where you have a melee carry, and the melee carry unit is going to be getting the kills, getting the HP back, and especially when you have items like Hodge in the execution line, they're going to be getting so much extra damage by staying full HP.
A fairly early Cassante picked up here, so does have the Akali and Cassante. Could lead towards that all-out. The extra items is really good in this composition. You do need to itemize 2 full carries, and then you want things like Protector's Vow on top of Jarvan. So it does have the core of the composition already. Would be relying on hitting that all-out, and needs a few more items for that Cassante.
He has a lot of swords. You can see the Sterix, you can break them apart. The only thing that I think he's missing is the gloves. You really want IE on the Cassante when you're playing the all-out variant, as well as the fact that Akali really likes the Hodge. So we're going to, need a couple of those to come through, but we can get away with what we have for now. And if you hit 2-star Akali with Rabadons plus those items, then maybe you can just deal with that and get the, true Biss onto your Cassante later.
And the expected player here coming through actually looks like they're pivoting towards this Soul Fighter line. So it's something we thought might get played a little bit potentially this variant where it's more so leaning into the Volley Bear carry. We've seen Volley has a really good matchup into the likes of GP. A little bit of rolling down here and has picked up the core of that composition.
Yep, and we can see over there on SCSC, he's managed to pick up an RFC. So there's the range. You know, he's got the flick evades. Doesn't even need stretchy arms if he didn't want to. He's going to have infinite range here. Interesting with the RFC though, some people still sometimes go for it. I do believe there's a slight difference between takedowns and kills when it comes to RFC, as well as the stretchy arms. So maybe he'll still go for it just to get that guaranteed range extender. However, regardless, his spot's looking really, really good. He just needs more money. Yeah,
and it does mean that position-wise, it's so easy to keep this GP safe. You can put them on the second row straight away. There's no risk that you're ever really wrong side. GP is just going to be untouched for the entire fight.
Okay, this was a hard game to play before this, but now we've picked up that bronze for life. I think he even had a really easy option. I think there was a last-second save, another really strong augment selection that people really like to pick up because they know it's just guaranteed healing. However, Sapim he's showing up. This is going to be either a masterclass or a disaster class.
Yeah, we'll have to go back to them a bit later on to see if they were able to stabilize that. The one thing that potentially they do have in their favor, some of these salvage bin turns, and when you're doing this massive pivot, you can take a really big loss. If he does come up against one of his teammates, it might be able to just help him a little bit, just take one of those smaller losses, stabilize somewhat.
Yep, and we can see there's the Prowler's Claw there picked up for the Yasuo, so he's going to be dashing around a little bit more than usual. We've got some really nice items there on towards the front line. The utility there from the Koboko is going to be getting a lot of extra HP there. Does have access to the Sunder, and you know, keeping your GP safe, yes, true. However, we did just get charged by Cassante and then jumped onto by an Akali, so GP is running away, and it looks like he's going to be getting towards the back line, and Akali is not able to get back onto the GP anytime soon. And he is able to heal all the way back up, and wow, what a dominant show from a team built from 2 stars.
Yeah, and it just shows how powerful that GP is, because the positioning, as you said, was quite good. Cassante and Akali did both get onto GP. GP was just able to kind of de-aggro. Akali left. GP went to the back line and just cleaned everything up. Checking in here with Bintium, one of the 2 crew players in the lobby. It's level 6, 10 gold. Not the strongest position to be in, but we did expect both these players will be having a fairly low cap.
And if you look over there towards the right side of the screen, we can actually see the color of the jerseys is quite a nice indicator of where our team's standing. And as you start to get into stage 4, it gets a little bit dicey. Players having multiple players below 50 HP means that as they do finally stumble their way into stage 5, they're only going to be on 1 to 2 lives. It's going to be very, very dangerous, and you do have to verse your teammate at some point. And if any of those 3 bottom players verse each other, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Whereas it looks like T1's got a lot more HP to work with.
Yeah, and for T1 here, they'll be aware of this. They'll be looking at that and thinking, okay, we will have 3 players currently in the bottom 3. Maybe now we roll. Maybe now we go a little bit earlier. It might be you were considering holding back, waiting 1 more turn. If you're potentially putting a player into kill range, you pull the trigger 1 turn earlier. As we saw there, SCSC, we know they're going to be in a really good spot. Bintium was happy to take this loss. Bintium's aim is just to try and finish 5th, 6th place, just get some points on the board.
Yeah, they're really going to have to go hard on a couple of the players, because if you know you have a player like SCSC who's most likely going to be winning out, Bintium was in a pretty comfortable position, but then just dropping down to 64 HP, it gets a little bit scary as they will have to verse each other, and it doesn't look like many of these other boards are able to contend with the GP just yet. I mean, that's just the absolutely dream setup when it comes to artifacts. So we're going to have to see, you know, how can some of these other players survive. It is good to see Dooney Zuni up there, quite a lot of HP as well. So, you know, maybe if SCSC can play for the win out, Dooney Zuni can just bleed slowly for them.
Yeah, I think at this point, SCSC, they'll just be like, okay, don't sack for people. You just play your own game. You don't want a turn where you potentially give the other team a free round because you're trying to make yourself a bit weaker. You're our win-out player. The other 3, it's time to figure out how we can get as many points on the board to get to that 19-point threshold. And potentially with SCSC being on the win-out, they're only going to need 18 Tamura to potentially win this lobby. They're in a really good position.
I also didn't even realize, but he's picked up the portable forge as well. So having that living forge just isn't enough odd items to go with. I mean, I'd say it's a little bit more of a risky option, as I do believe that the Prowler's Claw was the last one that was picked up. So that means that the RFC and the Flicker Blades was already secured. He had exactly what he needed for the GP, but maybe he was looking for something for Koboko. I mean, Prowler's Claw, you know, it's fine on the Yasuo. Or maybe he just didn't have many other good options.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what they were offered, and Prowler's Claw, as you said, it's just going to make Yasuo a little bit more of a nuisance. It's just all about CC in that backline. We do see Saupimi coming up against LPTC, and Saupimi just does have enough, it looks like. So Weibo players, both that are pretty low. Saupimi staying alive off the back of that pretty hard transition, but is in a really, really rough spot now, 11 HP.
Yeah, so I said this was going to be a master class or disaster class. He's got you know, so many tools to work with. He's able to show up, and he's able to put himself together a really nice board. But he's run out of money here. He needs to buy the Cassante and the Rise, and it looks like he's going to make his board stronger but weaker at the same time a little bit, having to sell some of his front line there. But I don't think it really matters when you have the core of your board built up there. It does get the Rise too, but unfortunately isn't going to be doing too much for his board right now. However, with access to the salvage bin and his main carries having the items pretty much done, just Akali needs one more component. Then we can start to itemize this Rise and have a triple carry threat.
And only had to sell off that Darius as well, which wasn't doing an awful lot for this board. Is someone that you would attempt, essentially get out of anywhere. So should be in a pretty good position. Has now hit that important point. But 11 HP, there's people in this lobby that could potentially kill you. He is going to be really strong for the next few rounds, but when we have that GP matchup again, that's when we're going to be scary.
And crazy moving, you can just see there has 6 copies of the Katarina with the double dupe augment, which means that it's really, really unfortunate because sitting on only 33 HP, the team lead, as we saw in the previous video, you know, he's going to be trying to keep calm, keeping his team calm. We say, okay, guys, we just need to knock off South Pimi, and then if I can go 7th or 6th off the back of this Katarina, then, well, you know, we'll be okay. Looks like we are going to see another position from it.
Yeah, and just wanted to point out as well that Crazy Movement's HP hadn't actually fully updated, so it is 21. Bintium's now 23, so suddenly, a few turns later, Weibo picked up some wins, and now all of a sudden T1 have these 2 players potentially in a rough spot. The difference is for T1, they have 2 players that look like 1-2 is very possible. If you go 1-2, you win the game. It doesn't matter what else happens. So Bintium, Crazy Movement, they just need to pick up a few more points, potentially avoid that 8th place. But yeah, as of now, the HPs have closed in and Weibo have stabilized slightly.
Yep, and we do get a few Reforge coming out here on the sword component, not as favorable, but sitting on potentially 1 life here. We're going to have to get 1 final roll down, and we desperately need to find this Katarina. And that Yuumi is going to cost so much money here, and it's still unlikely to actually hit, so probably going to have to send it all the way down. And on 1 life, you sell the Yuumi, yeah, you probably have to, and still misses. That's incredible. We're going to have to see some of these other players if they're holding onto the Katarinas, because we mentioned this before, the 2-cost reroll line is so risky for situations. And there you go. We can see Tianlong's holding onto a 2-star Katarina on the board, and it's very, very common in a 4v4 that you're going to have a rough time playing reroll.
Yeah, we expected that. Going up against Sao Pimi on the other side, so it's a team v team matchup. Tianlong should be able to take the loss here. Sao Pimi needs this win and does have a really strong board for the time being. Tianlong on just a fairly standard line. It's that Star Guardian flex where you're playing around Jin. You don't necessarily go for the full vertical Star Guardian, but Jin is the main carry for that composition, and we know how strong snipers can be.
Yep, as we can see, some very lethal fights coming out here. Bintium is going to be knocked out down there as well, so it's really going to be up to his teammates there. We'll have to get a look at Dooney Zuni soon later to see if he's actually in a position to play for second, because, you know, worst case scenario, if these players are knocked out, we're going to have potentially have to see a 1-2 out of T1, and that's perfectly fine because they've got half of that secured, I think.
Yeah, and it's just crazy, to be honest, Tamura, that how quickly a game can change, because 4 rounds ago we were thinking, okay, Weibo are in a really rough spot here. Suddenly T1 are potentially going 7th and 8th, and as you said, that doesn't mean they can't win this game. They do have 2 very, very strong players. They were just hoping one of them can finish with Sao Pimi, but Sao Pimi hit that all-important turn. Everything came online.
Yeah, and the structure of T1 in terms of the game plan they've gone for a team environment looks really, really solid here. Because so they've got the protagonist, they've got Dooney Zuni who can save lots of HP, be as healthy as possible, and then bleed out into, you know, 2nd or 3rd position. You've got the win-out player who took a bit more of a gamble going for the Living Forge, really trying to play around some of those risky artifacts. But if you get the ones that enable the GP, then you put yourself in such a good position for only a 2-star. And then having that combination means now it's a lot more breathing room when it comes to some of the other players. They really just need to fight for any sort of placement. They don't need to necessarily play for top 4, just trying to avoid those 8s.
Yeah, crazy movement there, picking up a really big win. Also important round, but feels like his days are numbers at this point. Katarina just hasn't arrived. Too many people have been playing that denial game. And we know Crazy Movement has managed to pick up these 2 wins, but in the next few rounds, maybe even next round, will be dropping out.
Yeah, and actually insane that they're sitting there on a 2 streak, I do believe. I mean, the Rakan's definitely doing a lot at the front. I like the Augments selection. The first 2 are really, really good for this setup. However, not being able to use the duplicators on towards the Katarina definitely has to hurt a lot. We 3-star the Rakan, sure, that's great, but players aren't going to be denying Rakan, they're denying Katarina.
Now, coming up against his teammate here in SCSC, SCSC benched the itemized GP. GP with no items was on this board, very aware that this matchup was possible. Potentially even they knew exactly what was coming through and knew that, okay, we can keep Crazy Movement alive, but Katarina has already died there, so it shows even though SCSC's made himself a lot weaker, still wasn't necessarily the most convincing round. and maybe even Yasuo's going to clean up, which would be a disaster for T1.
Oh no, it actually is looking really, really close. Yasuo, are you able to take out the Funk? And there's no more damage on the side of Crazy Moving, and despite the fact that they had no GP, Crazy Moving is going to be getting knocked out, and that's really, really, really tough to see. But it goes to show the level of confidence in terms of, oh, I can bench my GP here because I'm winning this game anyway.
Yeah, and unfortunately it didn't work out, and that does mean Vintium's dropped out, Crazy Moving also dropping out as well. So T1 suddenly in a pretty rough spot. We know SCSC is the player that's probably going to be winning this lobby, so all the pressure on Dunizuni now to get into that top 2.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a couple of players, Tianlong, sitting on a little bit more HP than Duni as well, so there are multiple players who can rival the second, because that's what they're going to be really chasing. If they can take him out of the second place, then there's not really too much more we can do. We do see SCSC actually does have a decent amount of GPs, all those Katarinas before, and it looks like we're only one off GP. Okay, so Rolling Down does hit the Yasuo 3, so that Prowler's Claw now is actually going to be coming online. Rolling Down a little bit here, not sure how deep we want to go, but I would, be willing to predict that SCSC definitely has a lot of matchups which are going to be Weibo right now.
We see the GP3 does come through there, so it looked like he potentially skipped over one of them. It wasn't the case. The roll down was just a little out of sync there, but GP3 finally arriving.
Yep, going up against Guan. So, standard Soul Fighter line, unfortunately, the TG has rolled some pretty defensive options there for Samira. This is the dream scenario for the Mentor GP build, so I'd be very surprised to see anything come even close to it, as we do see at Bramble, Warmog Samira doing her best to stay alive, but the GP has so much attack speed, and that is going to be putting Guan into lethal range, as we will start to see a lot of the Weibo Gaming players fall. All eyes are going to be on Dunizuni, who does pick up a win.
A really important win there for Dunizuni. He's so close to dropping out. Saopimi, though, is on that win streak. And as you said, the difficult thing now for T1, okay, Dunizuni does have the HP potentially to work with. But Weibo will be doing everything they can. They know SCSC, they're going to lose the matchup. They're going to do everything in their power to just try sneak one of their players. Saopimi is the one that's on the streak at the moment into that top 2.
This is absolutely brutal, because Weibo, they pretty much have to decide who's going to be the challenger. Who is the one out of us three, all sitting on all sitting on one life this late into the game? We can sack for each other and send our best contender forward. However, if we send our best contender forward and the matchmaking RNG gives us SCSC, they're going to get squashed like a bug anyway. So it's a really tough decision here, and it looks like we are going to be getting a team kill coming up here. I don't see too many sackings, so maybe they're just playing strongest board. They go, you know what, whoever wins here is the strongest, and they should play for second.
Yeah, and I do think Saopimi is so strong, because this composition, we know how good it is anyway. It's quite expensive, which is sometimes the thing that prevents you getting to it, but Bronze for Life coming through. We see we've got a +1 as well on the Wraith, so that allows us to maybe flexibly play even more trades. Saopimi should be really strong. And
look at the items. We've gone from some very, very good tempo slams, despite the fact that they were quite low HP, to pretty much getting true BIS. And it goes to show that at a very high level, if you do play around this salvage bin, you can produce boards like this. You might not start with them, but that's actually a better case. You don't want to be starting with these items.
Yeah, it's certainly the case. The slams that came through were just enough to keep us healthy. He didn't actually full streak off the back of the slams. He just winned enough rounds to be able to get to this point where the final turn hit those 2 stars. We do see SCSC had just sacked around there to Dunizuni. So SCSC lost. There's no way he would have lost to anybody in the lobby unless he was trying to. Dunizuni picked up that win. So Dunizuni, an extra HP pool coming through. And that does mean SCSC knows for the next few rounds will be fighting Weibo, so it can just go full strength.
And that's the perfect scenario for T1. Having the matchmaking, knowing that SCSC is going to be going up against Dunizuni, means that, now they have 40 HP. Definitely 2 lives, potentially 3, depending on how close the matchups are. And now it's going to be really difficult for Weibo Gaming. They're going to have to get really lucky with the Ghost RNG if they are managing to take out Dunizuni, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, we see SCSC there just trying to get those fruits and snacks coming through for that Kabuko. Coming up against Saopimi, this is the player they want to eliminate. This is the player that could be top 2. If SCSC wins this round, I think that's it for T1.
Yep, and a great showing there from Saopimi, building a beautiful board, but when going up against the absolute